A 28-day success plan isn't about changing your schedule. It's about changing your identity. It's about looking at your life and realizing that everything you desire is on the other side of a pattern you've been repeating for years. If you want to transform your life in 28 days, you must begin by breaking the patterns that have kept you in cycles you no longer want to live in. Nothing shifts until you decide that the version of you who settled, delayed, hesitated, or doubted is not the version you are taking into your future. The next level isn't built on convenience, it's built on commitment. Transformation happens in small, consistent victories. People often wait for one big moment, one opportunity, one breakthrough, but breakthroughs aren't events, they're accumulations. Every day in this 28-day plan, you stack a small win. You choose the action that moves you forward instead of the one that keeps you stuck. You choose discipline instead of distraction. You choose growth instead of comfort. And every time you choose wisely, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. Momentum doesn't show up on day one. It shows up because you were faithful on days 2, 3, and 4 when nobody was applauding and nothing felt exciting. But once momentum arrives, it multiplies your results at a speed you never imagined. But none of this matters if your self-image remains the same. You cannot build a transformed life on top of an outdated identity. Before anything changes around you, something must change within you. You must begin to see yourself as capable, worthy, disciplined, and destined. You must stop identifying with the weaknesses you used to have and start identifying with the strength you're developing. When you speak to yourself differently, you show up differently. And when you show up differently, life responds differently. You're not doing this 28-day plan to become a better person. You're doing it to reveal the person you already are but haven't been allowing yourself to be. Motivation might get you started, but motivation is inconsistent. That's why discipline must become your closest ally. Discipline is the bridge between intentions and results. In these 28 days, you don't follow your feelings, you follow your commitments. You do what needs to be done, whether you feel inspired or not. You don't negotiate with excuses. You don't argue with your limitations. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You move because you said you would move. When discipline becomes your default, success becomes predictable. And don't underestimate the power of your environment. You cannot grow in soil that suffocates you. Your surroundings either fuel your progress or feed your stagnation. You must protect your energy, your vision, and your focus. Sometimes success requires cleaning your environment before it rewards your effort. Clearing old habits, old influences, and old voices that keep pulling you backward. If you surround yourself with people who talk small, you will think small. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you will shrink. But when you surround yourself with people who push, stretch, and elevate you, your standards rise without you even realizing it. What truly brings power to your 28-day plan is purpose. Purpose is the anchor that keeps you steady when challenges come. Purpose makes discipline meaningful. Purpose makes consistency natural. You're not waking up early just to wake up early. You're doing it because the future you're building requires it. You're not choosing better habits just to feel productive. You're doing it because your destiny demands a stronger version of you. When every action is tied to a higher mission, you stop quitting on yourself. You stop settling for good enough. You stop waiting for someday. You recognize that your purpose deserves your best, not your leftovers. These 28 days are not a challenge. They are an initiation into a life where you honor your potential, a life where you no longer negotiate with your greatness, a life where you rise above the limitations you once called normal. If you commit to these 28 days with full focus and full intention, you won't just create new habits, you will create a new identity. And when your identity changes, your life must follow. This is your moment. This is your time. Your transformation begins the moment you decide that the next 28 days will not be ordinary. They will be the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. Break the cycle. By breaking the pattern means you must confront the habits, routines, and thought loops that have quietly shaped your life for years without your permission. Most people think their life is stuck because of lack of opportunity, lack of resources, or lack of support. But the truth is, cycles don't continue because of what's missing. Cycles continue because of what keeps repeating. Every result you've experienced, good or bad, is the outcome of a pattern you've been practicing, often unconsciously. If you don't interrupt the pattern will keep producing the same life. no matter how many goals you set or how much motivation you feel in the moment. Change begins the moment you stop acting on autopilot and start acting with intention. You can't transform your life while living the same day over and over again. You have to notice the choices you make the moment you wake up, the thoughts you entertain when things go wrong, the behaviors you fall back into when you're tired or stressed. These small familiar responses create the loop you're trying to escape. And most people never change because they're loyal to patterns that no longer serve them. They defend their limitations. They justify their procrastination. They cling to comfort even when comfort is costing them their future. Breaking the pattern requires courage. Courage to interrupt what feels normal. Courage to challenge what feels safe. Courage to step out of the predictable and into the possible. It means you stop letting your history dictate your destiny. It means you stop reacting the way you've always reacted and start responding like the person you want to become. It means you recognize that every repeated action is a vote for the identity you're reinforcing. And if you want to cast different votes, you must behave differently, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unfamiliar. This is the turning point. When you break the pattern, you break the cycle. When you break the cycle, you break free. And freedom is where transformation begins. Small wins create big shifts because success is built like a staircase, not an elevator. People get frustrated because they look at the entire mountain and forget that mountains are climbed one step at a time. They want the breakthrough without the buildup, the transformation without the repetition. But the truth is, every major change in your life will always be the result of tiny victories you chose to stack when nobody was watching and when nothing seemed to be happening. Small wins are the seeds of massive momentum. A small win is the moment you keep your word to yourself. It's the day you wake up on time when you didn't feel like it. It's the moment you read for 10 minutes instead of scrolling for an hour. It's choosing the healthy option when the unhealthy one feels easier. It's writing one paragraph when you don't yet have the energy to write a book. These don't feel life-changing in the moment, but they're identity-changing. Every small win reinforces a simple truth. You are capable, you are disciplined, and you follow through. And once your identity shifts, your results have no choice but to follow. Small wins compound. One win leads to another, and each win builds confidence, clarity, and momentum. Momentum is where everything starts accelerating. What felt difficult last week becomes effortless next week. What felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What felt impossible becomes normal. When you stack small wins for 28 days, you don't just become consistent, you become unstoppable. Because the power isn't in the size of the action, it's in the consistency of the action. The mistake most people make is waiting for big moments to feel motivated. But big moments don't create motivation. Small wins do. They create a sense of progress that fuels your belief. They teach your brain that effort leads to reward. They shift your focus from how far I have to go to how far I've already come. And when that shift happens, everything gets easier. You stop quitting, you stop doubting, you stop worrying about pace and start trusting the process. Small wins are not small. They are silent builders of big transformations. They are the quiet bricks that build extraordinary lives. And when you honor those tiny victories every day, the big shift you've been waiting for becomes the natural result of the person you've become. Rewrite your self-image before you rewrite your life. Because every action you take, every decision you make, and every result you experience is shaped by who you believe you are. You can set goals, build routines, and chase breakthroughs, but if your identity, the story you tell yourself about yourself, stays the same, you will always sabotage your potential. You can't create a new life with an old self-image. You can't walk into your future while holding on to a version of you that was built in your past. Most people try to change their behavior without changing their belief system. They push themselves to work harder, wake up earlier, or stay disciplined, but deep down they still see themselves as inconsistent, unworthy, or average. So even when they make progress, they find a way to fall back because the subconscious mind will always drag you back to the identity it's familiar with. Your life will never rise above the level of your self-image. If your identity says, I'm not good enough, your decisions will agree. If your identity says, I'm always starting over, your habits will prove it. But if your identity says, I'm disciplined, capable, and destined for more, your life will align with that truth. Rewriting your self-image means challenging the old labels you've accepted, labels from your upbringing, your past failures, your fears, or other people's opinions. You stop saying that's just who I am and start asking, who do I choose to become? It means replacing self-doubt with self-command. It means speaking to yourself with authority instead of apology. It means standing in front of the mirror and declaring the identity that matches the future you are building, not the past. You survived. You begin to visualize yourself succeeding. You imagine yourself disciplined. You see yourself confident. You treat yourself like someone worth investing in. Your thoughts begin to support your growth instead of arguing against it. When you rewrite your internal identity, your external habits start to align naturally. You no longer fight yourself to do the right things. You're simply acting in harmony with who you believe you are. Once your self-image shifts, everything else becomes easier. Decisions become clearer, discipline becomes smoother, and consistency becomes natural. You no longer sabotage your progress because progress finally feels like your new normal, not a temporary achievement. You don't build a new life by forcing your way into it. You build it by becoming the version of you who belongs there. And when your identity catches up to your destiny, transformation becomes inevitable. Discipline over motivation means you stop relying on emotions to decide your actions and start relying on commitments to shape your future. Motivation is a spark. It feels good, it fires you up, it gets you excited, but it's temporary, inconsistent, and unpredictable. You cannot build a transformed life on something that comes and goes. Motivation may get you started, but it cannot carry you across the finish line. Discipline is what carries you when emotions disappear, when excitement fades, and when life becomes inconvenient. Discipline is the muscle that gets stronger every time you honor your word. It's the quiet power that shows up even when you don't feel like it. It doesn't negotiate with excuses. It doesn't care about your mood. Doesn't need to be inspired. Discipline is a decision you make daily, not because it's easy, but because your future deserves it. The people who achieve the greatest transformations are not the most motivated. They are the most committed. They move with intention, not emotion. Relying on motivation creates inconsistency. Some days you feel unstoppable, and other days you don't feel like doing anything. If your actions follow your feelings, your results will always follow your inconsistencies. But when discipline becomes your foundation, your progress becomes predictable. You stop starting over. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop letting your feelings sabotage your future. You act because you decided to act, and that decision carries more weight than any temporary emotion. Discipline also builds self-respect. Every time you follow through with what you said you would do, you prove to yourself that you can trust yourself. That trust becomes confidence, and that confidence becomes momentum. Once momentum kicks in, the things that once felt difficult become easier. What once felt like pressure becomes your new standard. Discipline doesn't just change what you do. It changes who you believe you are. And here's the truth. The version of you who achieves your goals is disciplined, not simply motivated. The life you want cannot be built on mood swings. It requires a steadiness, a focus, a strength that only discipline can produce. When you choose discipline over motivation, you stop being someone who tries and you become someone who becomes. Your feelings may fluctuate, but your commitment remains immovable. And when commitment drives your actions, transformation becomes inevitable. You don't just chase success. You become the person success gravitates toward. Environment determines execution because no matter how strong your intentions are, your surroundings will either support your growth or suffocate it. People underestimate how deeply their environment shapes their habits, behaviors, and standards. You can have clear goals, powerful motivation, and deep desire. But if you stay in an environment that keeps pulling you backward, eventually it will overpower your progress. You cannot rise in a space that keeps you rooted in the same patterns you're trying to escape. Your environment is not just the physical space you occupy, it's the people you talk to, the conversations you entertain, the energy you absorb, the information you consume, and the routines you allow. Everything around you is teaching you something, influencing something, reinforcing something. If you're surrounded by distractions, you'll become distracted. If you're surrounded by negativity, you'll become doubtful. If you're surrounded by people who play small, complain often, or avoid responsibility, your standards will naturally drop to match theirs. Not because you're weak, but because humans adapt to what they're exposed to. Execution requires clarity, focus, and momentum. and your environment controls all three. A cluttered space creates a cluttered mind. A chaotic routine creates chaotic results. A draining social circle creates drained ambition. When your environment works against you, your execution becomes inconsistent. You find yourself restarting, hesitating, or slipping back into old habits. But when you intentionally build an environment that supports your goals, everything changes. Progress becomes easier because you no longer have to fight the atmosphere. You're supported by it. Creating a success-driven environment means eliminating what pulls you backward and increasing what pushes you forward. It means surrounding yourself with people who challenge your thinking, elevate your standards, and hold you accountable. It means choosing conversations that inspire you instead of drain you. It means organizing your space so it reflects the future you want, not the past you lived. It means protecting your energy like it's currency, because it is. When your environment is aligned with your goals, execution becomes natural. You don't have to force discipline. Your surroundings reinforce it. You don't have to chase motivation. Your atmosphere fuels it. You don't have to fight resistance. Your space removes it. A supportive environment turns effort into ease and consistency into a lifestyle. And when you place yourself in spaces that match your destiny, you begin to rise to the level of those spaces without even trying. Your environment is either your greatest advantage or your greatest obstacle. Choose it wisely, because it will determine how far, how fast, and how powerfully you execute. Purpose brings power to your routine, because when you know why you're doing something, the how becomes easier, the when becomes consistent, and the what becomes meaningful. Too many people live on autopilot, moving through their days without intention, relying on fleeting motivation to keep them going. But a routine without purpose feels like a burden. A routine with purpose feels like a mission. Purpose gives your actions weight, meaning, and direction. It transforms ordinary tasks into spiritual, emotional, and personal investments into your future. When your routine is connected to your purpose, you stop seeing discipline as sacrifice and start seeing it as alignment. Waking up early isn't just waking up early, it's honoring the future you're building. Reading isn't just reading, it's expanding the mind that will carry your destiny. Studying, training, saving, working, improving. None of it feels pointless anymore, because every action becomes a building block in the life you're intentionally creating. Purpose elevates your routine from something you have to do to something you're called to do. Purpose also protects you. When obstacles show up, a routine without purpose collapses, but a routine driven by purpose stands firm. Purpose gives you emotional stamina. It gives you the strength to push through the days when you feel tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed. When you forget why you started, your routine becomes a prison. But when you remember your purpose, your routine becomes freedom, because you start to realize that everything you do is moving you closer to what you were created for. Purpose creates consistency. You don't need motivation when you have a mission. You don't need inspiration when you have intention. Purpose reminds you that your effort is not wasted, your time is not wasted, your discipline is not wasted. Every habit becomes an investment. Every repetition becomes progress. Every small action becomes a seed planted in the soil of your future. When your purpose is clear, your routine becomes unstoppable. And the most powerful part is this: purpose shapes your identity. When your actions align with your purpose, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop playing small. You stop living casually. You stop treating your life like something you can afford to waste. You start acting like someone with a calling, someone with vision, someone with responsibility. Purpose doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. And when your identity is strengthened by purpose, your routine becomes a reflection of that strength. Purpose is the fuel behind consistency, the fire behind discipline, and the meaning behind every action that leads to your transformation. When you anchor your routine to your purpose, you give yourself the power to keep going, keep growing, and keep becoming the person your future is waiting for. Your transformation begins the moment you realize that nothing in your life changes until you change. These 28 days are not just a plan. They are a declaration that you refuse to live below your potential any longer. When you break the patterns that held you back, when you honor the small wins that build your momentum, when you rewrite your identity to match your destiny, when you choose discipline over emotion, when you shape an environment that supports your elevation, And when you anchor everything you do in purpose, you become unstoppable. This is more than a month of effort. This is the rebirth of a new standard, a new mindset, a new version of you. The person who walks into day 1 will not be the same person who walks out of day 28, because every day you show up, you're not just completing a task, you're casting a vote for your future. You're proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you ever allowed yourself to believe. There will be moments when it feels hard, moments when your old habits try to pull you back, moments when quitting would feel easier than pushing forward. But those moments are the very reason this plan works, because every time you choose to continue, you strengthen the identity of the person you're becoming. And once that identity shifts, your entire life must shift with it. The path to your next level isn't found in wishing, waiting, or hoping. It is built through intentional days, disciplined actions, and unwavering purpose. These 28 days will not just transform your routine, they will transform your future. Your success isn't a someday dream, it's a decision you make today. Step into these 28 days with conviction. Commit with your whole heart, and watch how your life begins to reflect the greatness that has always been inside you. Your transformation starts now,